Welcome to the CommonHouse Podcast, the show that talks about marketing, advertising, and the creative that drives business success in the Southeast. So I'm Tommy Kirkpatrick, this is Casey Combest, and together we own CommonHouse Productions. It's a video production company here in Jackson, Mississippi. Funny enough, we actually own two separate companies as well. So Casey's separate business is Blue Sky Studios. They are music and podcast recording. Casey has a lot of experience with podcasting, and funny enough, it's actually how we met.
Yeah, that's right. When we began doing podcasts, we were really early to market. And then some of those companies would ask us, hey, do you know anybody who could do video? And so we would jump in a lot of times and say, yeah, sure, we can do that. And I would hire you to help me out. And over the years, we developed a good working relationship. And we sort of saw that could be a separate venture that we could both do together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And so on the podcasting side, currently we have about 30 customers that we work with. Half of them, we produce the show. We'll actually record it, help them with ideas sometimes. And then the other half, we just do the back end. So we might edit their videos or their audio, or we might help them with marketing deliverables and things like that. So just as we go into this conversation, know a little bit where our dealings with podcasts are. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, and you mentioned you were early to market, and how huge of kind of like a foresight that was, honestly, to like go from where podcasts were, 10, 15 years ago to where they are now. Back then, it was kind of like, we'll get into more of this in the show, but I think it's kind of interesting to get in your mind of like what it was like then, to kind of like be able to see this could be something. I'm going to take a gamble on it, and I'm going to start pushing forward.
It definitely was. And I think you've heard me say this before, but I really saw what was happening in the early 2000s with social media. Brands were looking at social media and saying, oh, wait, we should be where our customers are. I kind of saw like maybe that could happen with podcasts. And we were very early to market. We were about 3 years in, and we still had 3 customers. And I was like, this is not working. And then 2018, 2019 were big years. And then 2020, when COVID hit, so many of the brands that we had some type of communication with needed a podcast, either internally or externally. And so, it's been a crazy journey for sure. So
yeah. And I think that's kind of a great starting point with the first question is, why are podcasts such a valuable tool for businesses right now?
Yeah, I think there's not many other platforms where you can have deep, long-form engagement with your customers. And it's such an interesting platform because when you listen to a podcast, it's not something that's interrupting your media. So it's not interrupting your favorite show or your sports game you're watching. Like, you're choosing to click on that and be interested in this topic. And so you have your customers right where you want them in a lot of ways. One of the statistics we found was that 80% of podcast listeners consume most or all of the episode. I mean, that's crazy.
That is wild.
That is wild. Like, that someone is consuming content in that way, and you have that permission that they've given you to intimately be in their ears or on their screen where they can watch you. It's really, really neat right now to see how podcasting is growing.
And I think it's almost counterintuitive to what we think, because there's so much short form content out there that the narrative seems to be, our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter and shorter because we're wanting to see, quick 5-10 second videos.
That's right.
But the reality is that no, we still enjoy long form content.
That's right.
And so it's something that is worth investing in because of that.
And it's a both and. Like, we need the short form content for our brand, but being able to have a podcast like this allows the customer to know us, for this example, like, you guys will get to know us a little bit and see our personalities, good or bad. You'll be able to do that. And so the same thing is true with your brand. And I think that leads me to the next point, which is that authenticity beats advertising every time. If you can be authentic with your brand. And I mean, that's one of the things when we're making a video. So let's leave podcasting alone for a minute. When we're working on a video, like, if we can get the interviewer to be, or interviewee to be comfortable and to be authentic, it's always going to be a better video.
Exactly.
So if they're not reading off a script, not that we have a teleprompter, but if we can get them to speak authentically, like, it's always going to be more pure, more enjoyable, and deliver a better ROI. And so I think that the same thing is true with podcasting, that when you're hearing someone's authentic voice, when you're getting to hear a conversation between friends or colleagues or professionals, it really just gives you another dimension to know that business. And they're convenient. I mean, we had a lot of yard work. It's springtime when we're recording this. We had a lot of yard work this weekend. And so to be able to have something in my ears that I enjoyed learning about was really, really enjoyable. And there's nothing else like that. You won't watch a video for 2 hours while you're working in the yard. You might have it on YouTube, but then you have you have to do some paid for features if you want to close your phone and things like that currently. And so just the convenience is so interesting. And so one of the questions I get asked often is like, when are people consuming podcasts? And it's their commute, their workout, and then chores around the house. And so those are your biggest listening times.
I mean, you just named the exact top 3 times that I'm listening to podcasts too. Right. You listen to your daily news on the commute in the morning, and then you listen to, your favorite topic whenever you're doing something around the house. I'm that exact same way. That's one of my favorite pastimes is, and during the summer when I have to do yard work, pop in a podcast and listen to a couple episodes of something for a few hours.
It's enjoyable, and you can educate yourself and learn or entertain yourself in a way that's really, really fun. And for businesses, I think we're seeing more growth each year because it just positions them even more as a thought leader in their space. And so being able to do that through your podcast is really, really powerful. And then lastly, I love how it is really a content goldmine. Yeah, you can create one podcast. Even from this, we might pull 10 to 12 reels. We might do a couple blog posts. Like there's so much content when you pull that transcript or chop it up into different ways. And so it's really, really a neat platform that I think we're seeing grow the last few years, and it's going to continue to grow. I don't think we're at the top of the bell curve just yet.
Yeah. Kind of, because I think exactly what you mentioned is it's a great both and for that short form and long form content, because you're getting both out of that. Like you mentioned, if you can get, 5 to 10 reels that you can post a shortened topic that then people watch that, it intrigues them enough to look up your podcast. They've just consumed so much of your information and thought of you as so much a much more trustworthy person just because of that for the one podcast episode. So
that's right.
It's really powerful. So next question would be, what types of businesses are seeing the most success with podcasting?
Everybody. No, I'm just kidding. I think anyone who I feel like there's 2 dimensions here. You have your customer facing side of things where you're wanting to educate, get to know your customers, let them know you, show them more, give them more information that will help them, just be a utility for them. Yeah. But then there's another side that doesn't get talked about enough. And we have some of our customers that are like this, like they're not huge shows. Like they don't have huge listenerships, but the people that they're getting on their shows are bringing millions and millions of dollars into their business through referrals, through partnerships, things like that. And so I think if your business, kind of going back on those, like if your business it would be beneficial for your customers to know more about your product or be educated, podcasts are great. If you need more relationships to take that next level on your business, podcasts are great because it's a wonderful way to softly meet somebody. Hey, would you like to be on my podcast and talk about how awesome you are? Like there's a really friendly way to transition there. And so
I think it's a really cool analogy to like the social media world. For example, I think one of the biggest things I always hear in marketing circles is, like with Instagram, for example, is it's not the number of followers you have, it's who is following you is great. Yeah. Same thing with podcast listeners. It's not the number of listeners you're getting, it's having the right listeners.
That's right.
Those right listeners that are converted into customers is huge. And I would rather take that having, 300 right listeners rather than 5,000 views and no one buys a product. It's a huge difference, and it really does matter.
That's right. And finally, just kind of wrap up answering your question. I feel like I preach this a lot early on is, hey, don't worry about making money on ad sponsorships if you're selling another product. Yeah. And I feel like people are finally listening and are not to me, but they're learning that, hey, this is the secondary. The outcome of the podcast is secondary. Exactly. It really is more about that relationship and positioning you as a thought leader so that you can sell more of what you already sell.
What kind of content should a business podcast focus on then?
Yeah. You and I both read a really helpful book called They Ask You Answer a few years ago. And I think one of my big takeaways for that was answer the questions that your customers are asking. And so in your podcast, like if you can search, do a Google search for, hey, or a ChatGPT search for what are the common questions about your product. So let's just say you're doing lawn care or something, or something like that. Maybe search like what are the top 10 searches in your area or in your state or in your part of the country that people are making, and make podcasts about that. Yeah. Because that's what people are wanting to know more about. And so answer those questions that you commonly get from customers, or use features like ChatGPT or Google to find those. I also think featuring client success stories and letting them talk about their relationship, their success. And it doesn't have to be in a salesy way. I mean, it's going to naturally come up that they're referencing that you've worked with them and you've helped them. But that's just a wonderful way for us to look at somebody else and say, hey, they're like us. Like I want to be like them and use this customer or use this product or service. And if you're a bigger company, you can interview your internal team, showcasing who they are, how passionate they are about what they do. We've mentioned this in a previous podcast, but I know for myself, there's been a lot of products and services that I've bought because I'm like, man, those people really care about what they do. They really like it. They really, it means more to me. And then I would just say, like, pick evergreen topics that aren't necessarily timely. There are certainly good things that you can talk about that are timely, that are culturally relevant. But when it relates to your business, like, there's so many questions that you've been asked the last 5 years and you're going to be asked the next 5 years. And so focusing on those, and don't be afraid to be creative and show some of your personality when you're doing the podcast. You know, showcase who you are. Like, people do business with people. And so the more we can showcase who we are, the better.
Exactly. I agree with all those points. I think it's
of course you do, because I'm right.
I'm obligated to be here. But no, I think that's so another great question kind of leading with that is, like, how can podcasting support other parts of your marketing strategy?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but it's such a great way to, like, it can be the spearhead in a lot of ways of your marketing efforts. So if you let's just take a video cast, for example. So being able to break those out into reels or take a transcript and pull that down and make a really great blog post for SEO. I mean, it's just really the gift that keeps on giving. It's so helpful. And I think one of the other things that we've seen over the years is when you hire an outside team to do your marketing, one of the biggest struggles is always going to be to get your authentic voice. Like to say it the way you'd say it, to deliver the message the way you want it delivered. But when it's a podcast, you're saying it. It's literally how you would say it because it's there. And so there's no confusion. And so it sort of positions you, again, as a thought leader, but also as a utility for your customers. Like, they can see your usefulness in the marketplace of, like, wow, this is really helpful information. And it turns those, I hinted at this earlier, but it really can turn those guests to, this would be sort of a different dimension, but it can turn your guests into referral partners or promoters on your own as they talk about being on your show or how enjoyable it was to work with you or something like that. That's going to point more and more customers to you.
Exactly. Yeah. That build those relationships too. It's kind of its own form of networking as well. Whenever you're spending time with guests and getting to talk to them about a topic you both enjoy.
Yeah. It's great.
So what tips would you give a business that wants to start a podcast this year?
Yeah. Call us first of all. Yeah. Like, let's work together. But if you're going to do it on your own, I would say start with a clear goal. Like, know what you want to do with the show. Map out your first 10 episodes. Write down your first 10 guests. You don't have to do them all, but it'll get the wheels turning and you'll see what's possible. I would encourage you to, and we've talked about this before, don't make the story all about you. Like, you're probably not going to get a ton of listeners if your show is all about how awesome you are. No one wants to hear that. They do want to hear about how awesome your product is that will help them and how awesome it'll make their lives. But they don't want to hear about, you know, how great you are over and over again. And so as you're mapping out those shows, I would encourage you to do that. Also, stay consistent and commit to a schedule. One thing we saw early on is a lot of shows would start, they'd do a season, they'd be like, hey, this was great. We're gonna take a break, we're gonna come back. And you could literally see their analytics drop all the way down. And then, I mean, it was just like they were starting over season 2.
Every time.
And you're recreating every time. And so stay consistent. Like, if you're gonna do this, commit to do it for a few years. It is not gonna be a year long. You see it and it's an immediate payoff. I know, even personally, using myself as an example, there's a lot of people where I listen to their podcast or them on podcast for a long time before I spent a couple $1,000s on their program or their course or whatever. Like, it takes a little while for us to build trust. And so I would encourage you, just commit to it and stay consistent. That's
so true. That, like, what's the out of sight, out of mind concept? Maybe it's out of earshot or something like that with the podcast. But same things. I mean, personally, for me, whenever I'm listening to podcasts that I have even saved, you know, on my favorites, so the new episodes always pop up. If they take too long with like a second or third season or something, it may pop up, you know, 6 months later. I'm like, oh yeah, what was that about? Do I even want to listen to it anymore? I don't know.
I hope they have have a good recap because I can't remember what happened.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. And also, I was joking. I mean, I'm serious. Please reach out to us. But if you don't, like, try to do the quality the best you can. I have seen so many shows and big brands that come out and embarrass themselves.
Yeah.
Like, the quality is so bad. And people feel that even if they're not an audio engineer, even if they're not technically savvy, they can see the quality or hear the quality and say, oof. That's how that brand feels about what they're putting forward. And so make sure you're doing it the right way.
Yep.
And then lastly, just promote every piece of content as much as you can. So that's one of I think the benefits for a marketing team on the podcast side is you sort of get the cyclical nature. Let's just say you're doing them twice a month. There's this cycle every 2 weeks. Okay. We're promoting today's episode and we know what our content's going to be like the next 2 weeks. And that really is helpful to sort of have that framework. And I'm sorry, I did say that was the last point, but there's one other thing I would like to add. Just remember to look at your analytics. I can't tell you how many times I've looked, even this past week, sat down with a client and we looked at her shows, and one of the shows we saw that performed the best was an interview that I did with her, and she just talked. So she wasn't interviewing her guest. Yeah. She didn't have these big influencers on like she usually does. It was just her talking, and it was huge. It had retention. It was her biggest listeners for the last 6 months. And so that showed us like, hey, people want to hear more from her. And so just look at your analytics. A lot of times they'll tell you the story you need to hear.
That's so true. Sorry, I'm just going to say it reminds me a lot of kind of the Donald Miller story brand concept of you positioning yourself as the guide. Oftentimes, so many shows get caught up on the guests that I think they forget that sometimes the customers just want to hear from you. They want to like, okay, well, what do they think? Like in her episode, we're like, okay, well, they were excited. Like we get to hear what she thinks. Like what is just her opinion on all this stuff? So that's super helpful.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Tommy, thanks for interviewing me today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it. And I hope this was helpful for you guys. Again, our hope for this podcast is that there are tools, strategies, tips, things that you can pull and apply to your business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks, y'all.